All right, so welcome to the video series and podcast Empowering Her. And today we have special guest, Destiny. Destiny, I'm so glad that you're on here and going to share your wisdom with us today and your experience. So, without further ado, why don't you tell us what you're doing in your career wise today and with that kind of that journey that led you up to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm a content marketing manager at a tech startup based out of Chicago. Now I live in Tacoma, Washington, so I maybe see the office 4 times a year. And I had a really unconventional path that led me to this point. Most of my colleagues, they went to high school, they went to college, they got an internship, and then they worked their way up the corporate ladder. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in high school. I changed my mind a lot. I went from astronaut to veterinarian to Air Force pilot, all kinds of random stuff. And just kind of got, my parents had the best of intentions, but got kind of pressured into going to college to do something. So I took a couple of semesters in communications and then I switched my major to criminal justice. And then eventually I just dropped out altogether and said, you know what, this isn't really going anywhere. And I'm spending a lot of my own money. Didn't really qualify for any financial aid or scholarships at the time. So just focused on making money and kind of learning and experiencing life. So I really just did whatever paid the bills at the time. I was a dog groomer for a few years. That was a nice low entry level position. And then I moved to Montana to kind of learn a bunch of other stuff. I wanted to learn how to live off the land and get that super rural experience. There, I became a chef. I was a bartender. And where my career really took off in marketing was, honestly, out of necessity. I had started a family and I needed a job that I could do remotely. So, I'd always been kind of a writer, in college, like my essays, they did pretty well. So I'd heard about this crazy thing that people were doing where they could do freelance writing online and just work from home. And so that's what I started doing. Um, and initially it was just, I wrote endless blogs about things I really didn't understand, cybersecurity and technology. I learned on the fly. I didn't know the first thing about this stuff, and I just read and watched YouTube videos. And then over time, I was around a lot of marketing professionals and I picked up other skills and started learning more that I could really pitch to other companies and help them with their actual marketing strategies and not just write for them. So I was self-employed for about 7 years as a writer and then as a fractional marketing director. And now I'm in-house with a tech startup and I kind of love it.
That is awesome, and you've had quite the wild ride all over the place.
Yeah.
So that my students and those that are watching this will kind of have a better understanding of what it is that you do in your career. What does, and I know every day, with my own internship in marketing, every day is a little bit different. But
Sure.
what might a typical day to day look like for you?
Yeah, so I do a lot of writing. At a tech startup, there's a lot of even if you're in a leadership position, you have to be very hands-on. So I do a lot of the stuff that's on the website. I do a lot of our banner ads, write a lot of emails, blogs, white papers. I also have to hire a lot of people. So right now, I'm trying to find a really awesome graphic designer for the company to work for us. I coordinate with influencers, so I have definitely been that person who's had to reach out to the lipstick model on Instagram before, which is kind of nauseating sometimes. And yeah, just a lot of meetings, sitting in conference calls and trying to keep my dog out of the frame, mostly.
And so I'm going to assume that you are working remote.
I am, yes, always have.
Cool, because I know one of the questions that the students, especially that are interested in working from home, not having to go to an office and getting
Mhm.
dressed up every day, is that which one of these careers works remote? And I think with what COVID has done, because I like my neighbor, he works remote now, and he works for a telecommunications corporation who we never thought that they would let anybody work remote. But as he's been working remote, they decided to go ahead and keep with it because they are saving so much money from not having people in
Yeah.
like the the physical building. And so you didn't finish college, so I'm going to assume within the marketing, it's not necessary or mandatory for you to have a degree in order for you to be successful in the marketing field.
Yes and no. So a lot of companies think it's necessary, and I'm pretty sure that the job I have now had somewhere on the description bachelor's degree required. Um, I guess my biggest piece of advice would be don't listen to job descriptions. Most companies barely know what they need. So, um, and I recently just we had a college degree requirement on one of our positions, and I talked to leadership and said, we this person, why do they need a degree? And they're like, oh, I guess they really don't. And so we took it off. So I think that is an outdated model, and a lot of companies are starting to realize like practical experience is way more important, especially in marketing, than having a degree is.
Well, and from talking to so many, women, especially women in leadership, is there's a number of them that do have a college degree, but that degree has nothing to do with what they're doing today. So I like how you said it's outdated, because if if they're just like, oh, have a degree, but it's not even related to the field you're working in, what is really the point of having that degree? Not that there's anything wrong with having a college education, but
Sure.
with so many boot camps and online resources today, I think it is outdated, kind of like you said. So another big question that I get from my students is, how much do these people make? So um, what do you see? And I know marketing is all over the place, from community managers to digital marketers to SEO to. But if we could talk about maybe what it looks like at that entry point to kind of that lower salary, all the way up to the CMOs and that the head of marketing, kind of what that salary range might look like.
Definitely, yeah. So I will preface this by saying that it's the amount of money that you can make self-employed versus working, on a W-2 and having an actual job is really different. But generally speaking, when I was a freelance writer, and mind you, I had no idea what to expect. I was just thrilled to death to be working from home. So there were jobs that I took that didn't even pay a legal minimum wage. I mean, I just wanted to build portfolio experience. So don't do what I did, because you can definitely make a legal minimum wage. So for like a content writer, for example, if you have no experience starting out, I'd say like 15 to $25 an hour is probably the range that you're looking at. And again, really, it's more so about your ability to do the job. So if you have writing samples to show somebody that you are good at conversational writing, that's the biggest thing. Showing up on time for the interview, huge sell. Like so many people don't even do that. And then from there, in my job field, like when you advance and you start to pick up more strategic skills, like, oh, I can write a blog, but I can also tell you which keywords to use and how to incorporate that into your email strategy, blah, 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 all those things. So for a content marketing manager, you're looking at between 85 and 135K for a salary, depending on where you live. More companies are just adopting the high side of the scale because honestly, there's nobody in this job right now. It's really, really hard to find talent. So it's a super candidates market. But as a freelancer, you're able to command really whatever a company is willing to pay. There was a time in my career where I was a content writer and I had about 3 years of experience working for a small agency owner, and he was paying like $25 an hour. And I realized that I was really, really underpaid. And so I told him, hey, I'm going to give you 60 days notice, but my rates are going to make a significant jump. I'm going to start charging $60 an hour. And I'll never forget, it was like the craziest conversation. He was super mad because he's like, I don't even make that. And I was sitting there thinking, this is an agency owner and he's not making $60 an hour. That's kind of crazy to me. And he told me I would never make that. And now if I even take an hourly client, it's usually at least double that rate. So don't let people tell you what you can and can't make.
I love that. So let's say I have a student listening to this and they're like, okay, I want to go to that direction in marketing that has the most demand, that they're having harder time finding people. What areas of marketing would you say somebody should focus on?
It changes so quickly. I mean, by the time your students get out of high school, it could change again. Right now, I think the biggest problem is that digital marketing completely changed the landscape like 5 or 10 years ago. And so people adapted and they learned really specific skill sets. They're like, okay, I'm going to focus only on SEO, or I'm going to focus only on Google Ads, or only on social media. And the problem is that there's nobody who has enough understanding of each of those things to piece together a strategy overall. And that was kind of what I saw in the market. And so I created kind of a direction for myself where I was like, oh, I'm going to become a content marketing manager because I have a feeling that not many people are doing this right now. And it's true, I don't have people to refer my recruiters to anymore. So content marketing, I think just overall having an understanding of how all these marketing pieces fit together, it's a hugely sought after skill set. Not many people have it. It is exhausting to acquire that skill set for sure. Another one that's up and coming too, and we can never seem to keep enough talent on deck for our performance ads managers, like proven ads managers. There are a lot of changes happening on the social media side of things in terms of where we can advertise. I feel like Apple and Google are taking huge bites out of Facebook's advertising capabilities right now, and having good advertisers who are able to adapt and really like lock in strategies and produce results. Even like if you're really great with Snapchat, like that's if you can identify an area that's up and coming, especially for younger generations, where somebody with a bachelor's degree who's been in marketing for 10 years probably isn't going to know how to advertise on Snapchat, but it might be second nature to you because you use that platform all the time. Those are the areas where you can focus and make a ton of money. TikTok advertisers are another huge market that, like, I don't know how to advertise on TikTok. I would need to hire you to do that for me for sure.
It's interesting that you mentioned TikTok because I know on LinkedIn there's kind of this, there's a debate whether TikTok is a viable place for people to be, advertising, and Todd is on there making these crazy videos that are entertaining to watch, and I said, Todd, you're like breaking ground in something new here, because especially in B2B it's always been so very serious, and then the argument was made, well, like even the people that run these agencies and companies, they like to be entertained, they like to laugh, and what better way to create that engagement than to create that content that makes people laugh. So I like that you mentioned TikTok, because there's so many of my students love TikTok and Snapchat. So I think they will be very excited to know that you can make me, as they would say, playing on social media all day.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of money.
And what would you consider the difference between marketing and the actual advertising?
I'd say advertising falls under marketing. Again, it's just one of those subspecialties, and within advertising, like, advertising on Google is way different than advertising on Snapchat, for example. And another thing to consider too, I think like a lot of people look at corporate careers and they're like, "Oh my God, like that sounds so boring." Keep in mind that there are a lot of generations are moving into leadership positions in companies, and the types of advertising that you can do now are so much cooler and so much like aligned with what's important to you. One of my most recent projects was a dating app focused on LGBTQ inclusivity, and so one of my jobs was to interview like dozens of people from ethically non-monogamous and LGBTQ communities and create a more inclusive experience for them. And so it's yes, it's advertising, yes, it's marketing, yes, it's corporate BS, but at the same time, like, you get to shape how a company comes to market. You get to insert your ethics into how these companies evolve. So it's an awesome opportunity. You guys are really well poised to do it.
That's almost like a UX researcher too.
Mhm.
That's very interesting, and I love that because I know I really love talking to people. So I think that would be like
Yeah.
the dream job, going and just talking and interviewing people would be awesome.
It's so fun, so fun.
So if they wanted to, so I have this student, and they're watching this and they're like, oh my god, what Destiny does is really really cool. So, and they wanted to kind of follow in your footsteps without taking so many detours.
Sure.
What might that direct path look like from the entry level to kind of working up to like the level you're at right now?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to think about it is, I started with a creative skill set, and then I built technical skills to lead me to a strategic skill set. So my creative skill set was writing, and for you, it might be video, it might be graphic design, whatever it is. But start with something that you're passionate about that already comes kind of easy to you, and start building on that with technical skill sets. So, for me, like I could write really, really well, but I didn't know the first thing about blog writing. There are actually like scientific processes that I needed to follow. And so I built on those and built on those. So start with your creative skill set, start building your technical skill sets. And then it's almost like I think about it like hopping stones in a pond. Like, you just kind of like you hop onto the next stone, you learn another skill, and you keep climbing up that rung. But the biggest thing is to just start taking on more responsibility with every move that you make. In the next maneuver, ask yourself how you can prove that you're helping a company make money. The next one, ask yourself, well, where can I lead and mentor other people? Where can I hire a team? How can I help this company make use of the revenue and the traffic they're already getting? Just keep building on that. And there's no reason that this needs to take. It took me like 8 years to get here. It can take you 2 to 5 for sure.
I like that because in some ways, especially if you're a little focused or a lot focused on that path that you want to take, you can almost be financially better off if by the time that 4 years it takes to graduate with that degree. Again, not dissing on a degree by any means, but that's one of the questions that the kids are like, do I have to get a degree to be successful? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. So um, I like, as far as the technical skills, because I went on like LinkedIn Learning and I'm looking at HubSpot. And so I've taken a few certification courses, SEO, inbound, but there's so many out there. Which of the technical side, such as like AdWords and SEO and things, which ones do you think are probably the most in demand that somebody should look at?
Gosh, it really depends on the specialty that you're going after. For me, like, I focused on content marketing. And so for me, like, I needed to learn about like Google Analytics. I needed to learn about SEO. And I actually had an SEO mentor, which is where I was. So I never actually took a course. He just plugged me into his accounts and showed me around. So a lot of on the job learning for sure. As far as certifications and things like that, I think like for the conventional employer who is like, show me proof that you know how to do this job. Certifications are helpful. So HubSpot, inbound marketing, all these are free courses, by the way. Like you don't have to pay for any of them. There are plenty of paid ones as well. If you're interested in advertising, Conversion XL Institute or CXL Institute has a great growth marketing course. There's the Content Marketing Institute. I've never actually taken that course myself, but I've heard really great things about it. I know the guy who runs it, and he's a very smart cookie. But honestly, the best way to learn most of these technical skill sets is almost all of the platforms that you'll be working with have some kind of free training. So like right now I'm going through Webflow University. So I want to learn more about how that platform works. And by the end of it, I'll probably be able to build a website. I'm not going to take my career in that direction, but I'll have another technical skill set in my back pocket to use.
No, I like that. So one thing that kind of blew my mind, I when I did the SEO, because I was really when I took that SEO course, I really kind of wanted to know SEO best practices for blogging,
Mm,
and I got halfway through the course, and it is talking about, in some ways, it's talking about programming languages and how to actually set it up, and I was like, I just want to know about long tail keywords and like like I just want to like
yeah.
yeah. So let's talk mentors for a second.
Mhm.
So, how important do you think mentors are, and what are best practices for finding a mentor? Because I know that there's better ways to do it than if I just message you, go, "Hey, Destiny, will you mentor me?" And you're like, "I'm kind of busy. We're all busy." So, what is that best way to approach somebody to ask them to mentor you?
Well, I think first of all, putting my marketing hat on, anytime you're asking somebody for their time, especially when it's for free, use flattery. Just tell them how brilliant they are. Like, oh my God, I would just love to learn from you. Give them an opportunity to make an impression on somebody because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be seen as an expert. So that would be my first piece of advice is appeal to their ego a bit. In terms of like how to find the right mentor, even whether it's advisable, I mean, I kind of picked up a mentor by accident. I just happened to be working with a guy on a nonprofit project who he was working at Woolrich at the time, and he just kind of took me under his wing and showed me a few things. But it was a very brief stint. From there, really, most of my mentorship has been through business coaching. So, like, I was self employed for 7 years, and I definitely paid a ton of money to get people to kind of help me proactively shape my business. But if there's an area of expertise that you want to learn in, and you see where there's somebody who's doing something right, and there are plenty of platforms and websites where you can explore and find mentors. I don't know if you guys have SCORE, that program in your area, but there's like a lot of small business mentorship programs out there as well. But the main thing with anything, with hiring a business coach, with hiring a mentor or a consultant, is make sure that they have gone where you want to go. If Just because somebody has a job title doesn't mean they know what they're doing. So look for social proof points that show where like they have like case studies or their colleagues are like, yeah, so and so is so awesome at this. Like even just what do they call those things? on LinkedIn where you can like acknowledge somebody's skill set. Um, anyway, I can't remember.
Like
But
a
yeah,
receipt.
that's
Yeah.
the main
Oh,
thing.
like an endorsement.
An endorsement, that's it, yeah. Just verify that they actually know what they're talking about, and it's gonna be hard because you may not know enough about it, but look for social proof points, right? Like, maybe you wouldn't go to a coffee shop who has 1 Google review, right? Like, you probably wouldn't go to a mentor who, has no proof anywhere on the internet that they know what they're doing, and if they're in marketing, then they should, so.
Beautiful. Okay. So, hot seat question for you. If knowing what you know now, if you could go back and give your middle school, high school self one piece of advice, and it doesn't have to be career oriented, just life advice, what would that be?
Definitely to trust myself more. I think, at this age, I think a lot of people can probably relate to feeling like nobody in the universe gets you, right? And like you feel like you have these ideas and nobody really understands why you think the way you think. And in junior high and high school, I really struggled to I struggled with authority, I struggled with systems, I struggled with being told this is how you have to do things. And I was just like, BS, absolutely not. I don't wanna do it that way. That sounds awful. I don't wanna go to college for 4 to 10 years and then maybe come out with a, middle to high level paying job and work 60 hours a week until I die. That sounds like terrible, you know? Um, I really flipped the middle finger to that one.
Yeah, that sounds so glamorous.
I know, and that's what they're selling. And so at that time, I got a lot of pushback from my teachers and my parents and my peers and deep thoughts destiny, it was difficult being a 30-year-old woman in a 15-year-old kid's body for sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, I was right and I should have trusted myself. I would have gotten here a lot faster if I had just trusted myself. So um nobody knows everything, but if you have some intuition, you have some gut feeling that this is what you should be doing and everybody else is telling you to do the opposite, listen to yourself first for sure.
That's perfect. And yeah, I had one of my students said, "Are you saying don't go to?" I said, "No, no, 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 no," because if you want a career in medicine, or
Sure.
you want to be an architect, or you want to be a nurse, or you have to go to school to do that. Um, but like even the districts, they don't push vocational training as much as they should, because there's some like with our Votex, they have coding and they have programming, and
Mhm.
you can get those great mentorships and internships in the trades that are fantastic jobs also. But what is really lacking is those within like SaaS or tech, and so that is my priority for this, is to really bring awareness of those, what I call those non-traditional roles within recruiting and marketing and sales and product management, that those fields are going to keep growing and growing and growing, and a lot of us don't find out about those fields until we're in our 30s, and some of us in our 40s.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much the case, and I will say too that if you get any pressure to take like an entry level job with like like kind of like a lower level skill set, like things like medical coding, they're always like these like job trends, so to speak, especially for like high school to college age students. I think dental hygienist was the big one when I was in high school. Everybody was going to school to be a dental hygienist, and now the market's flooded with them, and they don't make as much as they were promised during their education. Right now, the company that I work for is actually an automation company, and I can tell you for a fact that in the next 5 to 10 years, medical billing and coding won't be done by humans anymore. So if you get advice to go into those very clerical and like data entry and things like that, chances are it's going to be done by robots really soon if it isn't already. So, focus on being creative and strategic. Those are things that robots can't do. So,
That's perfect, the human element.
yeah,
Well, Destiny, thank you so much for your time, and I really can't thank you enough for sharing your wisdom, your career steps, and everything in between.
of course. Yeah, and good luck to everybody.
Thanks.
All right, bye.